All right, welcome back everyone to the Data-Driven Deep Dive. I'm Mark.
And I'm Jenny. And today, Mark, we are diving into a market that might not sound super flashy initially, but trust me, it underpins so much of our interconnected digital world.
Oh man, I am stoked for this one, Jenny. We are talking about the Software Localization Tools Market. And when I first started digging into this, my mind was doing backflips.
Okay, wait, localization? What exactly are these tools? Like, is it just Google Translate on steroids?
Haha, kinda. But way more sophisticated. So basically, they're platforms and software that help companies adapt their software, websites, and apps for different languages and cultures. Think about it. If you want your app to be used everywhere, you can't just have it in English.
Right. You need it in Spanish, Mandarin, Hindi, you name it. For the user experience, that's critical.
Exactly. And these tools are the engines that make that happen efficiently. They manage the translation process, handle different character sets, adapt user interfaces, even manage currency and date formats. It's a whole ecosystem.
Okay, I get the why. It's essential for global reach. But let's talk numbers, because the reports I saw were, let's just say, varied.
Haha, you saw that too? This is the part that was quite surprising initially. So one report from Verified Market Research put the market at around $1.2 billion in 2024, projecting growth to $3.5 billion by 2033. That's a decent CAGR, over 12%.
Okay, solid growth. But then you look at something like a GitHub report or Data Horizon Research, and they're talking about figures like $11.52 billion for 2024, growing to over $21 billion. That's 10 times the size.
Right? It's quite a difference. And the CAGR is still robust, over 11%. So the question is, why the huge variation?
My first thought is, they must be defining software localization tools differently.
Precisely. The lower estimates might be looking purely at standalone software platforms, the core tools themselves. The higher numbers likely include related services, integration costs, maybe even revenue from language service providers who use these tools. It's a broader scope.
Ah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you're looking at these numbers, you really need to understand the methodology and what's being included.
Absolutely. It highlights how important it is to read past the headline number. But even with the lower estimates, over 12% growth is impressive. That tells you something significant is driving this market.
Okay, so what time's driving that growth? Beyond just global expansion?
Oh man, this is a compelling part. It's AI, Jenny. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are reshaping the game here.
Okay, how so? Is it just making machine translation better?
That's a big part of it, but there's more. AI is being integrated into translation management systems, or TMS, which are like the central hubs for localization projects. AI can automate things like identifying translatable text, suggesting translations based on context, even doing consistency checks across massive projects.
So it's streamlining the entire workflow?
Exactly. This automation means companies can localize faster, which is critical for agile development where you're pushing out updates constantly. Some reports suggest TMS use can reduce time to market by nearly 40%.
Wow, that's a significant time saver. And time is money in a global rollout.
Precisely. And AI isn't just about speed, it's improving quality too. Neural machine translation is getting quite sophisticated, trained on vast datasets, and we're seeing more hybrid human-AI workflows, where AI does some of the heavy lifting, and human linguists refine and ensure cultural nuances are captured.
Okay, so it's not necessarily replacing humans, but augmenting them?
That's the sentiment from many experts, like Dr. Harold Muller at SAP, who's on the GLA advisory board. He mentioned that hybrid approaches reduce errors while preserving linguistic nuance. That balance is becoming crucial.
That makes sense. You need the efficiency of AI, but the cultural understanding from human experts.
Exactly. And beyond AI, certain industries are heavily driving demand. E-commerce, gaming, and healthcare are big ones. Think about gaming. You want that immersive experience no matter where you are. E-commerce needs to build trust by speaking the customer's language. Healthcare has critical accuracy requirements.
Right. And with digital health on the rise globally, accurate localization of medical software and information is essential.
Absolutely. And on the technical side, the shift to cloud-based solutions is also a major driver. It makes these tools more accessible and scalable. We're seeing cloud already dominating deployment models. around 67%, according to some data.
That makes sense. Easier to deploy, quicker updates, collaborate globally. So who are the potentially key players in this market?
You've got names like SmartLing, Transifex, Venga Global, Net Translators. SmartLing is a significant player, often catering to larger enterprises with complex needs. They have a robust platform with deep integrations.
I've heard of Transifex, especially in the developer community.
Yeah, Transifex is popular in more agile development environments used by many open source projects. They focus on easy integration into existing workflows. Venga Global and Net Translators often offer more specialized services, sometimes blending the tooling with human language services.
So they might differentiate based on the breadth of their features, how they're deployed, and sometimes focusing on specific industries.
Exactly. It's not a single approach market. Companies choose based on their size, their development process, and their specific localization needs.
And how might investing in these tools translate into actual business impact?
Oh, the impact can be quite significant. It's about reaching new markets, increasing sales, and building stronger customer relationships. Consider the statistic that something like 87% of consumers avoid English-only sites. If you're not localized, you could be missing a large segment of potential customers.
That makes sense. People tend to prefer to engage with content in their native language.
Exactly. And we see compelling case studies. There's one about Localize, a company that saw a 300% revenue increase in Japan and Korea after specifically focusing on localizing their UI and UX for those markets. That's a substantial jump just from getting the localization right.
Wow, 300%. That is a clear demonstration of potential ROI.
Yeah. It shows the power of getting it right, but there are definitely challenges too.
I can understand that. It's not just buying the software, is it? There are costs, skills needed.
Precisely. For SMEs, the cost can be a notable hurdle. Licensing fees for some enterprise-level TMS platforms can be quite high, which is tough on smaller budgets. And managing these sophisticated tools requires specific expertise that not all companies have in-house.
So there's both a financial and a skill barrier.
Yeah, it presents challenges. And then there's the ongoing balance between automation and human quality control. Relying too much on machine translation can lead to inaccuracies or missing cultural nuances, which could detract from the purpose of localization.
That's a good point. You don't want generic translations that might not resonate locally.
Exactly. And ethically, there are things to consider too. Data privacy is a significant concern, especially with cloud tools. You're dealing with potentially sensitive user data across different regulatory environments like GDPR.
Right, ensuring compliance adds another layer of complexity.
Absolutely. And there's a broader discussion about linguistic colonialism, where widespread automation could potentially overshadow or dilute minority dialects if not handled with care. It's about ensuring the tools are used responsibly to enhance, not diminish, linguistic diversity.
That's a really important point. It's not just a technical process, it has cultural implications.
Definitely. Looking ahead, though, the future of this market appears promising. More AI integration potentially getting better and better.
And I'd imagine expansion into emerging markets is a big trend?
Oh yeah, especially in Asia Pacific. The growth projections across different reports consistently point to strong expansion there. And something I'm genuinely excited about is the potential for real-time continuous localization.
Real-time? Like as you're speaking into it?
Sort of. More like, as developers update the software, the localization updates automatically, or nearly in real time. No more waiting for traditional translation cycles. That's perhaps a desired state for continuous integration / continuous deployment environments.
Wow, that could be a significant improvement for speed. So it seems like this market, while perhaps not as overtly exciting as some others, is quite vital and evolving rapidly.
Oh man, it is. It's a substantial component of globalization in the digital age. Understanding it is important for those in tech or business aiming to connect with a global audience.
Agreed. From the varying market sizes illustrating different perspectives, to the influence of AI and the ethical points, it's a complex but interesting area.
Couldn't agree more. It will be interesting to see how these tools develop and further assist in bridging language differences online.
Definitely. Well, that's our dive into the software localization tools market for today.
Thanks for joining us on Data Driven Deep Dive.
See you next time.